Shomrabyug.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the tiny room for the final time of the year.
It's the last of the year.
You don't talk before I introduce you. That's one of the rules.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So, now, let me tell you a tale. Ben, hello, just say hello now.
Hello.
Ben's
Hi.
here. He's ruined the usual conceit.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Hell. Wow. All right. So things have just gone out the window. Ladies and gentlemen, this year is the long Mickeys. That's what we're calling
A
it.
big, long Mickey for our favourite things.
We're going to give our traditional Ben, these are our third annual and first decadal Mickey Awards.
Yes.
But before we do any of that,
Go on.
we do have to talk about some other things.
There are other things on the list, Michael, yes.
As the decade comes to an end, Ben,
Tragically.
so does a great institution, Marvel Television.
That's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Isn't it?
It is very much a matter of
It's
opinion.
very much a matter of opinion. I would see it as a welcome farewell.
Good. And Ben, it looks like the last thing to be produced. Well, no, actually, this week, Runaways Season 3 came out.
Okay.
I think it all came out in one go.
Okay.
They were like, just get it out. Just
get rid of it.
get rid of it.
Just jettison it.
Like a big poo.
Yes. Just
Get
oh,
it all out in one squeeze.
thank God it's over.
Cloak and Dagger are in it. It's a crossover.
I don't care.
And also, Ben, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7 is yet to come. Yes, it is. It has been produced. And I think that will be the last hurrah.
Where we still don't acknowledge anything that happened in the Marvel Universe.
Well, no, Agents... Oh, yeah, well, like the last 2 years have been ridiculous, basically. Basically, Infinity War ruined Marvel TV's efforts to say it's all connected anyway.
Good.
But, Ben, it looks like that the future of the Marvel television going forward will just be the Netflix shows, which are the movie characters, which is what we really wanted in the first place, wasn't it?
Netflix shows?
Not Netflix. Disney Plus?
Disney Plus shows.
Disney Plus. Disney Plus what, Ben?
Disney Plus a bloody good time.
Oh, yeah. I see what you've done. So, yeah. Ben, speaking of Netflix, though,
Yes.
something which did come out today.
Go on.
We've said not to do that voice, Benjamin.
Go on.
The thing that did come out was The Witcher.
Yeah, it came out yesterday.
And we saw everyone's front bits.
Last week. Yeah. Haven't watched any of The Witcher, Michael. I haven't had time.
Neither have I, Ben.
Oh, great
no
podcasting.
bloody time.
Top class podcasting.
Apparently it's fine.
I do enjoy that the various fragile white Reddits are just having a field day with the fact that some of the female characters that they've played alongside in the games and stuff are now of a different ethnicity or race, and they're just like, oh, they did my girl dirty, which has double layered meanings, and it's disgusting, Michael.
Oh, that's not great.
They're having a fit.
Who's a different colour? Is it Ciri?
It's Ciri, yeah. Ciri doesn't have her red hair. She's got...
No, Ciri has white hair.
No, the one with the red hair. Who's the character with the red hair in the games? She's got very red hair. Scarlet almost.
Triss.
Yeah, Triss is not white with red hair.
That was terrible podcasting as I just stared blankly into space trying to remember everyone's names.
If only you were a meme, I would have put "Hello Darkness, my old
that would
friend."
have been good. That's what happened to Ben Affleck in that infamous video. He was trying to remember the
He
name
was just
of
trying to remember
a
everything.
supporting character from a show he kind of was familiar with.
But yeah, anyway, I'm enjoying the kind of meltdown that people are having. Michael, there's
Yes.
been a bit of controversy, a controversy, if you will.
There is, Ben.
Yes, go on. Tell us.
Oh, you
a
wanted
bit
me to
about
tell
that.
you?
Yes.
Ben, the Entertainment Weekly, probably the world's biggest kind of popular culture news and fan site.
Yeah, we always see the little logo,
The
the
little
little
EW.
watermark down
Yeah.
the corner of
When
various
we're-
images being
when we're-
leaked.
When we're stealing their content.
Yes, very important.
They had two professional reviewers, Ben. Not like us, not half amateur.
No, paid. Michael.
Paid professionals.
Paid professionals.
People who do it and receive money, not people who do it at their own expense.
And hope to receive money one day.
Mostly at their own expense, though. And they were given the 5-episode screener. That's pretty common, Ben, in a 10-episode series.
Sound.
You get 5 of them.
Yes.
So, you know, even if you do spoil it, you've only spoiled it to halfway and you get people excited and interested.
There's a little bit of an oomph.
And they did a very post-millennial review of it, which was a chat between two colleagues.
Oh,
And one of
almost
them...
like a podcast.
Yeah, exactly, kind of. And one of them I mean, the whole thing is terrible, isn't it? It's a terrible show. And it's like, yeah, well, it was so terrible, I only watched one episode of it. And then the other guy's like, I sat through the second episode and then I skipped to the fifth. It was ridiculous. I couldn't tell what was going on. Very bad reviewing.
Michael, that would be like if you and I went at the beginning of every movie we reviewed.
Yes.
Sat there for a little while and went, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then said, well, the ending was terrible. I didn't understand at all what was going on. It's like if we took a break in the middle of every
for a big
movie
poo.
we went to see. Exactly. And then came back and were like, well, I've missed over an hour and 45 minutes of this film and I have no idea what's going on.
That's a very big poo, Ben.
Very big poo. I need more fibre in my diet.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a ridiculous thing for two professional reviewers to admit.
Professional reviewers, Ben. They get paid to review.
It's literally their job.
We just want to break even.
We if anything, I'd settle for just coming in a little under.
Yeah.
a little under broke
just
even.
a tiny bit, yeah.
I mean, hemorrhaging the cash that we do.
Here's what's going on, though, right? At least, Ben, we have just said now, we haven't seen it, so we're reviewing the review of it. But how very dare they review something that they haven't watched?
And then give it a bad review.
And give it a bad review.
And just say, oh, well, I didn't understand what was going on by episode 5 because I skipped episode 3, 4.
Yeah.
No wonder.
And only kind of half paid attention to episode 2 because the names are too hard to remember because I'm an idiot.
Oh, the names are too hard to remember.
Too hard to remember where
Too hard to remember the names. Oh, at least when we don't remember names, Michael, we make a little bit of a joke.
Yeah,
of it,
or
a
just
jape,
make them
if
up.
you will.
Yeah.
Or we just say that we don't remember the names.
Ben, look, let's stop comparing ourselves to either the EW or The Witcher.
Look, if EW wants to hire a couple of lads who could actually use the money and won't skip bloody episodes,
we'll just not watch them.
get in touch with us.
We'll just not watch them and then not do the review. So our review of The Witcher is, look, lads, we haven't bloody seen
We
it.
haven't bloody seen it.
Probably fine.
Could be good, could be bad. Sure, who's to say?
Apparently a lot of nudity. It's trying to fill.
Look, great. I'm looking forward to going home and watching it right now.
It's trying to fill the Game of Thrones gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could fill my Game of Thrones gap anytime, Colopy.
Moving swiftly
Let's
along,
move
ladies and
swiftly
gentlemen.
along, Ben. We went to a Wednesday night cinema club.
We did a Wednesday night cinema club with good friend of the podcast, Jim,
Yes.
and good friend of the podcast, Shane.
Yes. And what film did we see this time?
We went and saw bloody Star Wars. Are we going to end it properly? Oh, bloody maybe not.
Right, so here we go, Ben. Let's just do a little spoilers warning.
Yes, full
Because
spoilers.
We're pretty early out the gate here.
Are
Let's
we?
be honest. Yeah,
Are we now?
it's been
I think
out.
we're about a week later, aren't we?
No, well, it came out on Wednesday. This will be.
Oh, we are.
This will be on
okay.
air on Monday.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people won't have seen it.
A lot of people want to see it.
A lot of people will have seen
We
it.
do a little spoiler-free review.
No, because I don't trust you.
Okay, well, that's
to be
fair.
frank,
Very fair.
I don't trust you not to
Very
spoil it.
bloody fair.
So we'll try and do the first 6 or 7 minutes without spoiling too much. But then that can't be guaranteed. So look, you've been warned.
Yeah, giving you a heads up. So anyway,
Go on.
bloody stuff happens,
Oh yeah.
and
Well, Ben,
some people like what happened.
I'm going to interrupt you straight away because I don't. First of all, I don't care what the internet thinks about this, so I don't want to
well,
hear.
that's why I'm here.
I don't want to hear what the Star Wars Reddit thinks. I don't care about them.
There's an entire fan base outside of the Star Wars fan.
I don't care about them.
All right, so we're
Why
going to go. Okay, we're going to approach this as if the fan base doesn't exist.
Yeah, which it probably won't after this one.
Zing.
Got them.
But yeah, okay. So we're going to approach it from a purely movie point of view.
Yes.
Non-existing. Are we treating it as part of a trilogy, or are we treating it as a standalone film?
No. You can't take this movie out of context without addressing either the overall saga or the trilogy or even the relationship with fans.
Or the bloody elephant in the room.
Yeah, what is that?
Just all of it. It's all awkward and nobody wants to talk about it. No, okay, let's come at it. We went to see Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
At Wednesday Cinema Club.
Yes.
The
On
4 of
Thursday.
us went in. 5 of us went in. Sorry, Shane's good lady friend was there.
Yes. Yeah, you've omitted her.
The 5.
You've whitewashed her
she's
out
been
of the
remitted.
podcast.
Anyway, she was there as well.
Yes.
And she also watched the film.
Yeah, she did.
And it's look, it's the last of the 9 movie plan that George Lucas had put together.
Is it? Look, Ben, here's my thought on this, right? Remember and again, I'm nearly contradicting myself because I'm talking about fan reaction, but I'm not going to be talking about the fans' reaction. Okay. Remember the original films, Ben? Do you remember them?
The
first 3,
the 1970s through 80s,
1970s, early 80s ones.
Yes,
so
I do,
people
yes.
kind of liked them.
Yeah,
maybe not the last one so much.
Yeah.
And the first one was kind of, in retrospect, fine. But, you know,
number 2 was good. Number 2 is
an all-time classic. But people liked them. Then they made the new ones. The next 3.
Oh, the bloody prequels.
The prequels. People didn't really like those so much.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
Massively financially successful.
Yeah, because, Star
enormously.
Wars.
But also, Ben, beloved by their own generation.
Yes, there's a whole... Well, you're not letting me talk about fan bases. But anyway, look, they're suffice to say, liked.
Yes, liked by some people, hated by others.
Folks. Yeah.
And unfortunately, Ben, and this is going to go back into the territory that you find interesting, this last trilogy seems to be based around... It's very reactionary.
They do... Yeah, look... I think one of the... To mention another Star Wars franchise, just very, very quickly, The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
One of the things that people have noted about the fan base around The Mandalorian is the fan base is not divided. I think it's terrible news for your fan base if the most noteworthy thing about a new Star Wars series is that people aren't bitching and moaning about it and calling each other cooks and libtards about it, which is very, very interesting. Look, the new series, I think, is very Disney. We started with The Force Awakens.
I don't agree with you on that at all.
That's fair enough.
Go on.
Anyway, I think the fan base lost their minds because, first of all, the fan base seems to think that they get to decide what happens in Star Wars.
Talking about the fan base too much, Ben.
Okay.
Let's not talk about...
Let's avoid that.
Let's
Force Awakens comes along. We get a brand new cast of characters. we get a bloody Lady Jedi in Rey. Rey without a second name, okay? We get a former Stormtrooper, also known as Finn. And we get a bloody Han Solo step in, also known as Poe Dameron.
Right, Ben, get off Reddit for 10 minutes.
It's too late.
What I'm saying is, right, look, the reaction to the prequels was, people don't like the prequels.
No, they don't.
So when it came to Rise of Skywalker, they essentially remade the
original
first
trilogy.
They remade the first film.
The
with
original
new characters.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, you guys didn't really like
when we
prequels.
tried to change things
So
up.
here's something like the original. What do you think of that? And people reacted to it, and people were very positive. But there was a little bit of backlash.
Yeah.
It was very financially successful.
Very.
People liked the new characters.
Yes.
It sold a lot of toys.
It did. Which may have been the goal all along.
And it was more critically well received than any of the prequels.
Yeah, fair enough.
Then people said, in a bit of retrospect, I really enjoyed that, but you know what? It was just the first one again, wasn't it? But with new special effects and different people.
That's how I felt about it when I watched it eventually.
So then they made The Last Jedi and said, all right, then here's
shake up the bucket.
We'll shake up your bucket for you, you sons of bitches. Here's a Star Wars unlike anything you've seen before.
And in retrospect,
yeah,
having watched that one just before we watched this one, Michael, some very risque decisions taken there.
Yeah.
Some real efforts to make something new, to make something solid.
Do you know that risque means sexually suggestive?
Yeah.
Not risky.
No, remember they had the light dildos as opposed to the lightsabers.
Yes, that was pretty risque, actually. Yeah, and they were waving them around.
Really surprised to see that in a Disney film.
Yes. But the risks that they took, I'm just going to say risky because that's the word. The risks that they took, Ben,
risque,
didn't seem to really pay off.
No, God.
Although,
God bless
The
them.
Last Jedi... This is way too long because we keep interrupting.
We're going to have to keep going.
The Last Jedi, critically, pretty well received.
Very well received, Michael.
Critics tended to like it a bit more than fans.
In fairness, some of the decisions, very interesting choices from a
Interesting
storytelling point
decision.
of view.
Exactly. Now, Ben, we get to my point, literally 6 minutes later, is that this film is a new course correction. Back in the opposite direction.
Yes, it's a course
correction. And in fact, if you look at it, the entire Star Wars film industry since the first 3 has been about course corrections.
Yeah, we're trying to adjust. We're trying to tweak.
Yeah. They're always, and I think it's too... Look at, Ben, what is the most successful film series of all time? The Marvel bloody films.
Michaelandbenjamin's podcast.
No, we've never done a film.
Have
we did a Christmas ad.
We did a Christmas ad, which you can check out now on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and
go
on
for it.
showmerbug.com. But what was I saying?
Yes, Marvel films.
Marvel films, not very reactionary.
No, they can't be.
They made a plan and they stuck to it.
They retconned some characters pretty hard.
They did.
Gave them some tweaks,
and they mushed things around a bit. But they don't seem to go on the Reddit, basically.
Yeah, they don't panic about what certain people think about their film.
And my biggest criticism of this last film was the entire thing seemed to be an apology for The Last Jedi.
That is exactly, it's an apology tour.
And in turn, The Last Jedi was an apology for The Force Awakens.
Was it?
Yeah, because they were like, hey guys, we know you didn't like that, it was too similar and we didn't take any risks. Here you go.
So here's a bloody bucket of risks.
And in the same way, The Force Awakens was an apology for the prequels.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is just...
It's been one long apology lap.
It's one long apology lap. That's what has disappointed me.
Yeah, so I think we can get a little bit more into spoilers here. I think they're trying to fit, in line with what you were saying, they're trying to fit an awful lot of movies into one movie. There was a lot of character development. There was a lot of team building exercises going on
Team building exercises 1999.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bit of Flight of the Conchords.
And they were stuffing a lot in there. And there was a lot of, as you put it, box checking. Or
did I say that?
Box ticking?
Box ticking, box checking, both are fine.
They were trying to do what fans wanted.
Hey, remember when Luke Skywalker threw his lightsaber away and you were pretty upset?
Well, he catches it in this one.
Catches it in this one and says, that's no way to treat a lightsaber.
That's no way to treat a bloody weapon
bitch.
of the Jedi. Yeah, look, there's a couple of things there that weren't so bad. There were a couple of things I enjoyed. I think, as I've said before, the iconography of Star Wars is hard to avoid. There are certain things that you see and you just go a little bit like, ooh, I've seen that before.
There's an X-Wing.
That's a bit of my childhood. And we like that. But there are other things that the film does that's kind of very messy and a poor choice in retrospect. So I suppose, can we do a big spoiler?
We do full spoilers.
Okay,
We warned everyone.
so big spoiler is Palpatine is back.
That's not a big spoiler.
Okay.
That was in the trailer 6 months ago.
For Christ's sake.
It was.
Just in case, right? Just in case.
No, everyone knows that.
Palpatine is back.
He's back.
And I suppose one of the big complaints I would have about that is, what the hell was that redemption arc for Darth Vader in the original trilogy? What was going on there? There was if he never died, if he never got chucked over the edge.
Palpatine.
Yeah, Palpatine. It undoes a lot of that effort.
I disagree, because he still defeated the Emperor, at least temporarily, and saved his son from the dark side.
Nah.
It's still a redemption arc for Vader. Vader's redemption arc is still better than this one.
That's true.
What?
Kylo Ren's bloody redemption arc.
Yeah. Here, right, hold on. I have 2 points to make.
Go.
The first point is, this film is so deathly risk averse.
It really is. It's playing it safe.
It does a couple of big things and undoes them in the next scene.
As quickly as they bloody can.
Again, full spoilers here again. Chewie is killed.
But
next scene, he's fine.
He's absolutely fine.
C-3PO's memory is wiped. He says goodbye to all of his friends.
That was a really nice moment.
Yeah, but don't worry though. He's fine in the next scene.
No, he's grand.
And then Rey makes the ultimate sacrifice and dies. But don't worry.
Don't worry.
She got better.
We got it. Also, they blow up an entire planet that has Poe Dameron's old connections. But everybody got off the planet.
Everyone we ever met got off.
How did they bloody know?
They
couldn't have known.
Also, that's my first point.
Yeah.
That any big move this movie makes instantly undoes it. The only one it doesn't undo is the death of Leia, which is very understated anyway, because obviously they didn't have footage of Carrie Fisher.
Leia wasn't there.
Yeah, she wasn't there because Carrie Fisher's
Carrie
dead.
Fisher passed away in The Last Jedi.
Everyone came back.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
Everyone had a cameo.
Bloody Harrison Ford came back.
back.
As a memory ghost?
I think so. Or just a memory?
He's not a force ghost. He's a memory ghost.
He's looking rough, isn't he?
Harrison looked rough as. I was like, oh.
Yeah, very rough.
Even his voice, he doesn't have the classic kind of Harrison Ford voice anymore. I was like, oh.
But anyway, here, look. Let's compare it, for example, to another end to a series, Avengers Infinity War.
Okay.
No, sorry, Endgame.
Yes.
Endgame did a lot of... I know you weren't a huge Endgame fan.
I wasn't a huge Endgame fan, but it was a very good film.
But do you remember in Endgame when Cap it looks like the Avengers have been defeated and there's this vast army and things are going badly.
And then a portal opens up.
And every character we've met over the last 15 years...
is suddenly there.
Comes pouring out.
And Star
Wars does that. It does its own moment.
It tries very hard to do that.
Exactly. So they're losing the final battle and then...
All of a sudden, not without some warning. Like we know this is kind of the plan. This was the big plan.
Everyone shows up to help, but there's no one we know there.
And they tried to do that. I think they have a couple of the actors from the original trilogy as X-Wing pilots and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean anything to the new generation of Star Wars fans.
They're borderline unrecognizable. The only recognizable characters are Lando Calrissian, who went off to get them. Yeah. So we knew he was coming.
We knew he was coming.
And bloody Poe's girlfriend, who we thought had died, but we'd only met her 15 minutes before.
15 minutes previous. I think that's one of the most interesting things. There's a lot of forced kind of bonding of characters that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, speaking of Poe Dameron's former flame, she gets the shit kicked out of her by Rey, and then she's like, "Oh, I like you.
Oh, I like you.
I know you don't care, but I like you.
You're sassy."
And I was like, "What? She was just about to hand her over to the bloody Imperials."
Yeah.
And then look, there's a lot of weird pushed force dynamics where it's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch, you're back.
I'm in."
And there's a lot of that going on, which doesn't really read as well as it should.
My other point of comparison with Endgame was going to be the snap, Iron Man's snap at the end. They do a very similar thing where, Thanos says, "I am immortal," and he says, "Yeah, well, I'm Iron Man, so in your face." And then in this, he says, "I am all the Sith."
And she says,
"I am all the Jedi, you son of a bitch." And then she dies to kill him.
And she gives a snap.
But she gets better.
Gauntlet for no reason at the end of the film. I don't know where that came from.
You're confused now. But then she gets better.
She gets better. She gets better through the power of love.
The power of
the
Force or whatever.
Force love.
That would be like if...
No, Force love is no good.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. We're all about consent here at the podcast.
That would be like if Nebula had sacrificed herself to bring Iron Man back at the end of Endgame.
Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
It wouldn't have been great. But look, it's a treat for the eyes.
It's a visual feast.
Yeah.
Even The Last Jedi had some very strong visual moments. Like, visually speaking, they've been a solid bunch of films. I'm not going to complain about them from that point of view. I think...
all the characters are likable as well.
They're much more likable, I think, in the third film than they are. Their chemistry is a lot more believable.
Well, they're actually together.
As a trio. I think that's how it's done. I think one of the big things about the Last Jedi, outside of any kind of fan reaction or anything like that, the characters are all separated and they go on their own little arc, and it doesn't necessarily read very well when they come back together. You don't. Again, Poe has only known Rey for a very short period of time, and he's like, "Oh, I need to get back to Rey." Why?
And the whole message for Poe in that middle film was, you have to learn to trust a woman who is concealing her plan for some reason,
and also has
a terrible message,
which is not a great message. Like that's one of the big
put your blind trust in people.
Yeah, it's
because if you don't trust them because they won't explain their plan to you, you might end up looking the fool.
I know it's a weird thing in that film where it's like, oh, why didn't you just say that was the plan all along? It's not like the Empire can hear you.
Yeah,
you could have just explained to people, look, you're going to slip away in this craft.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
While we distract them with the big craft. And then instead it's like, oh, I was very wise all along, Poe. You should have trusted me for no reason.
I never even said, "Hey, Poe, I have a plan."
Having never served under me, Poe. Having never seen me in battle,
You're a real prick, Poe. You're a real prick for being concerned about your people's safety.
My favourite part is where she just full-on shames him in front of everybody, even though he plays quite a central role in a lot of these things where he's like, oh, you're just a flyboy. Okay, just be a dickhead to me and expect me to like you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on
weird
there.
Film.
But, look, I don't think it's done very well, Michael. I don't think the reaction has been...
It hasn't been enormously positive.
All that positive.
It's probably going to make the least money of the three, which would make it a downward tilt for the entire trilogy.
Look,
I think Star Wars is done, Ben.
I think it should be done though.
But Ben, we had a good question from a good friend of the podcast, Dr. Stephen J. Cadwell.
Yes,
and he asked us what's going to happen now because Star Wars is done and Marvel's done.
What's next?
What's next?
Harry Potter's making a comeback.
Is Harry Potter going to make a comeback?
No, God, no.
Oh, Harry Potter's not even done. They haven't even finished their trilogy of Where Are the Beasts?
Yeah. Where are the beasts?
Where are they all?
Where are the beasts? Where do we put the lads?
Where are they?
But I don't know what comes next. There's a bit of a pop culture void to be had.
Yeah.
Now, isn't
maybe
there?
Cowboys will be back. Much to Shane's delight.
Much to Shane's delight. Well, here's hoping. I mean, I love it now, Cowboy. They won't come back though. It's big these days, Michael.
What was cinema like before superheroes?
Gangster movies and cowboys.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what it was.
What was it like in the 90s? Was it
Scorsese.
gangsters? It was all just
It
gangsters?
was all Goodfellas and bloody little neo-noir flicks like The Boondock Saints and The Way of the Gun and stuff like that. They became weird cult classics that nobody actually likes, but they were like, oh, that was a real part of my teenagedom.
I'm glad they're all gone anyway.
Yeah, and The Matrix.
Let's just have... Matrix is coming back.
Matrix is coming back, which...
Matrix 4 being released on the same day as John Wick 4.
I mean, good payday
Weird.
for Keanu,
but weird. But what a weird thing to do.
Weirdly competitive.
Yeah.
I would have thought that Keanu would be like, hey, how about we
You're
don't
breathtaking.
do that? You're breathtaking. That was very good. But Michael, we're not here to talk about Star Wars or The Void, because we've talked about that for a very long bloody time. No. To answer Mr. Cadwell, I have no idea.
No.
Sorry, Dr. Cadwell.
Yeah, that's Dr. Cadwell to you.
Dr. Cadwell to you.
You call him Dr. Cadwell, mister. That's a little Indiana Jones reference there for everybody.
What's his name? Short Round?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm dying. I don't know what comes next, Michael.
No, Transformers again, hopefully.
God, no.
Ben, it's the Mickeys.
Speaking of Michael Bay, I just watched his new movie on Netflix, 600 Grounds.
Deep Six.
Deep Six. No, that's the porn parody of the new Netflix special with Reynolds. But pretty good.
Is it?
Grand little film.
I've heard only negative things. You're the first person I've heard give a positive review of it.
Look, I went into it knowing it was Michael Bay.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly restrained for a Michael Bay flick.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly restrained.
It has Ryan Reynolds in it.
It has a Ryan Reynolds. I enjoy a Ryan Reynolds in just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's grand. It's grand. It's a bloody heist film.
Is it?
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
Is it?
Yeah,
Do they get the crew together?
It's just, he gets a crew
Do
together.
they spend an hour getting a crew together?
He doesn't have... No. It's in medias res. So the crew has been established. And then we get how he found the crew through a series of flashbacks.
And the people say, Ryan Reynolds, you
Yes,
son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, good.
Pretty much.
Is Taylor Swift in it?
No, she's not, thankfully.
Oh, she was in our heist movie. Bitch,
she was in our heist movie, but now we don't ever have to deal with Taylor Swift again because
Until
we've seen what Taylor Swift's like as a cat, and apparently it's not bloody great.
I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. We will not, Ben. We are not
No,
Entertainment Weekly.
I went in the morning
Well, you
and
didn't.
then I took a big...
I know for a fact you didn't. You took a big poo. You missed most of it, and now you're going to give us your review.
Anyway, the Mickeys, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
It's our annual show where we give out our coveted Big Mickey to our favourite shows.
That's very dirty.
And this year,
Yeah.
we have tremendous Mickeys, long-lasting Mickeys for a whole decade.
Right, Ben. So we didn't do nominations because we're doing the Mickeys of the
We're
decade.
doing the Mickeys of the decade,
Mickey
Michael,
OTD.
which was given to us by Dr. Cadwell.
So Ben, let's bloody start it. We're not doing nominees because A, you didn't do the polls, and B, we didn't really have time.
Sound. Thanks for that. I like how we're both taking responsibility, but Ben gets a little bit more responsibility than Mick.
A little bit more responsibility.
You fucked it up a little bit more.
A little bit more than I did. So Ben, let's start with film of the decade. I know what mine is. Do you want to start and tell us what yours is?
That's a good question, Michael. I mean, I've thought about this long and hard.
Okay.
By which I mean I haven't, because I
Very
haven't had
good.
time to think about this at all.
Now, Ben, before we answer the question,
Yes.
are we saying just categorically the best film of the decade?
That's a very
Or-
subjective thing, Michael.
Exactly.
That's a very subjective
Or are we
thing.
saying the most impactful film, the most surprising film, the like... We're just saying film of the decade. So you tell us what your film is, and then you can justify it for us if you want by just saying this is based on the quality of the film, or the fact that it came as a surprise, or the fact that it was iconic and will be remembered forever. It could
Okay.
be just a very personal thing.
If we're approaching it from the iconic...
We're not. I've just said
Okay,
that
sorry.
you can just pick one and then justify it. Do you want me to
I was actually going to say Infinity War.
Were you?
But I was looking at it from the perspective of impact on the decade, a reward for fans to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think people have invested over the last decade very heavily in the Marvel Universe. I think for a lot of people, it's their... And I'm very hesitant to make this comparison.
It's their
but
own Private Idaho.
It's their own Private Idaho or their own Star Wars saga, original Star Wars saga.
It's their Rosebud.
Yeah, if you want. And I think a lot of people have kind of grown with that series as we've gone along. 2012 was a very big year for crossovers, bloody Avengers. And despite it not being my favourite film, Michael, you have argued many times in the podcast, it is very, very much a thing that many people had been waiting to see for a very long time. And I think that's very fair. And the reason that I didn't choose Endgame, Michael, is because I don't think
Oh, you're choosing Infinity War.
I'm choosing Infinity War.
Oh, I thought you'd actually just misspoken.
No.
I thought you meant Endgame.
I'm intentionally choosing Infinity War on a personal level because I think it's a much better written film.
I tend to agree with you, actually, believe it or not.
I think it's better paced. I think it's a tighter film. I think, not to say the performances are better, that's not true.
It has the courage of its conviction.
It has the courage of its conviction. I think, also, I did not expect that ending. I think in terms of a film that genuinely surprised a jaded superhero film goer, I could not believe that the snap actually happened.
Well, if you throw back to us 3 years ago, Ben, we were saying, well, there's no way they're just going to kill off
There's
half
no
the
way they're just going to
superheroes.
kill off everyone.
Because in the comic books, it starts with them killing off all the superheroes, and they're not going to do that. So, and then they bloody did. No one was more surprised than you.
Such shock.
Except me.
Except you. I remember sitting in the cinema and someone was sitting next to me and they're like, you okay? And I was like, this is just so shocking.
I think it was me.
I was in Florence at the time.
Did you not go to see Infinity War?
No, not with you.
Oh, I thought we did.
I was in a lovely cinema in Florence.
Oh.
The bloody Odeon in Florence,
The Odeon.
which I often sing praises about.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting there and people were like, are you okay? And I was like, I was short-circuiting in the seat, being like, no, but they can't end the film here. They can't, because you see, we've been waiting, you see. And then it turns out, no. So I think in terms of impact, in terms of genuine shock value for audiences, Infinity War would probably be one of my top films of the decade.
Let's be honest, Endgame made its money not on its own greatness, but on the success of Infinity War.
Right in the back of the thing. Also, I think Thanos is a shoe-in for one of the key villains of the decade. I think he was very well done, very well rendered.
Thanos is the defining villain of the decade.
Yes, I think so.
There's no doubt
in
the world that
Thanos
is.
I think he did a wonderful job. I think he did a wonderful job. In terms, are we doing honourable mentions?
No, well, I haven't done mine yet.
Oh, go on.
So
You do yours.
It's Avengers. 2012's Avengers.
You fucking son of a bitch.
Again, it has been surpassed in terms of spectacle and scale.
You're damn right it has.
Time and time again at this
storytelling,
stage.
characterization.
No, the storytelling,
dialogue.
the storytelling, characterization,
Joss
and
Whedon's
dialogue.
no good.
He's very good. Avengers is a great film, and although it was pretty early in the decade, 2012, a mere 2012,
very early in the decade,
very early. It is the fulcrum of the decade in terms of popular culture, in my opinion.
No, you're wrong.
Everything that has happened since then, or before then, is because of Avengers.
That's very fair.
It's why Star Wars came back.
It's very fair.
It's why DC wanted a cinematic universe.
Very fair.
It's why Godzilla wanted a cinematic universe.
Very
it's
fair.
why Universal Monsters wanted a cinematic universe.
Thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah. I'm the mummy, or am I?
No.
It's Frankenstein's Dracula.
Thank God that didn't happen.
So, yes.
You're fair. It is a fulcrum.
It is the hinge point on which popular culture turned. And it's hard to look back on it now and see the risk in it. 6 marginally popular characters.
Marginally.
I mean, they were all B or C listers. Some of them even D-listers at that stage.
True.
Never
Hawkeye.
had a good... Hawkeye. Who'd even heard of him? He'd had a 30-second cameo before then. But by golly, did they pull it off. And Ben, you cannot... You 37-year-old me... How old was I? I must have been 30. I felt my life had built to that moment.
Yeah.
In a... other things are much more important, obviously, but in a
pop
culture
sense.
Entertainment sense,
Which is what this podcast is all about.
What this podcast is all about, Ben. And that's what I was waiting for. I recognise it is not the best film of the decade.
Yeah, fair.
By a long shot.
Yeah, fair.
It's probably not even in the top 10.
No, God, no.
But it is the film of the decade.
Defining kind of characteristic of a decade.
Even though it made...
Yeah, no.
I mean... It made nearly as little as a third of what Endgame made. I think
Fair.
it just a billion, maybe just over $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion.
Just a cool billion.
Just a
cool Billy.
A bare billion. But no, very iconic. So for me, the film of the decade is Marvel's
I'll allow that.
Avengers.
At the end of each of these sections, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah.
What did you think? Let us know down below in the comments, or get in touch with us at Shamrock Bilg. We might do a retrospective come January.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And take a look and see who agreed with us
Yeah.
and who didn't. So at the end of each of these sections, do let us know down below.
And just remember that define it yourself.
Yeah, we're not really into the business of of making a definitive list here, this is very much a personal Mickey.
Yeah, you can say why.
It's our own Mickeys.
I would say, Ben, for example, Mad Max Fury Road.
Very good film.
A better film
Very
than
much
Avengers.
So. Yes.
For sure, a
For
better
many
film.
reasons.
An excellent film, and a real surprise, and a real treat.
A real delight of the eyes,
And
feast for the visuals.
And it gave me my favourite costume of all time.
which you have worn several times.
I now have to stop wearing because it's so worn out. But a great film, a really, really amazing
Wonderful
film.
in terms of pushing female characters into the spotlight, giving them proper arcs.
Yeah,
No
no
bloody-
arms though. Not enough
No,
arms.
you're not allowed to have an arm. Not allowed to have an arm.
You can have a bloody character arc, or you can have all your limbs. Which one is it?
Yeah,
Pick.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I would argue that maybe, Michael, and I know we're going to get some backlash for this, bloody Spider-Man Homecoming. Best Spider-Man film that we've ever had.
Yeah, possibly.
We're going to get a lot of backlash for that, but I'm okay with that.
Homecoming was very good.
One of the best. You know, in terms of different movies doing different things, I think we've had a good decade for defining moments.
So let's do worst film of the year, of the
God.
decade. So again, let us not be the ones who define worst film. It could mean the most badly produced. It could mean the most disappointing. It could be the most racist. You know what I mean?
I mean, there were moments.
You define worst yourself.
Well, I suppose for me, Michael,
Yeah.
I'd have to say Batman versus Superman.
Oh.
I think if the criteria on which you've given us Avengers 2012 and Infinity War
Yes.
would be very much the criteria that you could look at for Batman versus Superman. I am of the two of us, Michael. I am the more
of the both of
DC
us.
orientated of us as a pair.
Yes.
I think more invested in the DC universe, and I suppose I had grown up watching the Justice League cartoon series, and I had
Justice
grown
League
up watching
Unlimited.
Batman animated series,
Yes.
Justice League Unlimited, and I had always enjoyed the Justice League dynamic. They were like a more organized Avengers in my mind. They were like a kind of a bigger clubhouse and stuff like that. And I had always enjoyed reading those comics and understand the relationship between Batman and Superman. And then that film came out and it was bitterly disappointing. I had hoped for something akin to the new Marvel Universe, something that could do that for some of my favorite characters. And they screwed the pooch, Michael, in terms of characterization, in terms of understanding how those two superheroes are supposed to work together. But even in terms of special effects, which had moved far past what anything could do previously, they did big, grey, scary, hulking monster men.
Big grey, scary fire and smoke films.
There's a lot of laziness in those films.
That's my most hated trope of the decade.
Big, grey, scary monster men.
Big grey, gribbly, smoke and lightning, fire in the background, monster men.
I think nothing is more guilty than Batman vs Superman.
Batman vs Superman,
Justice League,
Wonder Woman.
But Wonder Woman wasn't as bad.
It was. I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the big grey,
the
gribbly,
big grey
smoking Venom.
He has a big helmet.
Yeah.
He is completely CGI animated.
Yeah. Venom.
I think one of the things that I really dislike, and one of the things that seems to be remedying itself slowly over this year, is the over-reliance on CGI.
Right, go on.
And I think, not to besmirch Zack Snyder in particular, but Zack Snyder will always choose CGI over a real shot because he just loves CGI.
Come on now.
But it's true.
Remember Watchmen?
Yeah, but
When did Watchmen come out? That might
Watchmen
have
came
been
out. No, that's not
2009.
This decade. That's not it.
2009.
That's
Oh,
2009.
you're safe.
Safe.
I can't talk about Watchmen.
That was very clean. That was a little less over-reliant than Batman vs Superman or Justice League. It's almost like Zack Snyder leaned into the special effects a lot more. One of the key scenes that I would point out that as is in Batman vs Superman, where Batman takes down all the baddies in
That's
the warehouse.
pretty good, isn't it? I like that.
It's an interesting scene, but there's a lot of special effects there that don't necessarily need to be there.
I don't
There's
think
not as much practical as you would
I don't think there's as much CGI in that as you would think.
I think there is.
I think that scene has quite a lot of practical in it.
I don't think it is.
I think some stuntmen got really fucked up. In that.
Yeah, but I think he overlapped it with special effects to add oomph. Also, I don't like his obsession with slowed down epic moments in film, and he does those way too much.
Well, 300 caused that, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But look, for me, disappointment of the decade, or most disappointing film,
worst film
on worst film of the decade would be Batman vs Superman.
I would tend to agree. I was going to say Justice League, but Justice
think
League
as-
is a reaction to that.
Yeah, as an origin seed for just some messy choices on DC's part.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Even
And
Man
there's
of Steel wasn't that bad.
And there's a jar of piss in it. Every film should have a jar of piss.
Bloody jar of piss.
What else is disappointing? Hellboy was pretty damn disappointing.
Hellboy was bloody disappointing. As an honourable mention for worst film of the year, just messy film, bad editing.
Yeah.
That's a very recent edition. That's last year.
It is. I didn't like Underworld Blood Wars either.
No, that was just pushing the franchise.
That
Look,
was
that
a
was
bit too
just.
far.
Can you squeeze into that suit again, Kate?
She can.
You can.
Yeah.
Bloody can.
Have you seen her Instagram?
Bloody Kate Beckinsale. But anyway, look, I think in terms of biggest disappointments, it was probably that one. The one that I most wanted to see do well and just couldn't do it.
TV, Ben. Let's get on to TV.
Yeah, let's get on TV.
Again, who are we to say?
No great TV experts are we.
I watch a lot of TV.
We watch a lot of TV, but I don't think that qualifies us as experts.
But what I was going to say is, who are we to decide on which criteria this should be judged? So again, it's going to be very personal. So we're not going to say TV show of the decade. We're not going to say best TV show of the decade.
We're just going to say
We're just going to say TV show of the decade.
Yeah, okay.
And
I'm going to let you start this time.
Well, mine is pretty obvious to any listeners to this show.
To anyone who's ever listened to this bloody podcast.
Oh, no, all right, go on then. What do you think it's going to be?
Is it Avengers?
No, it's
Agents
not.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's Marvel's The Inhumans. I am, of course, doing a joke.
It's a Mickey's jape.
It's my TV show of the decade, Ben, is a bit under the radar maybe, but not if you listen to this. It's The Leftovers.
Oh, you love The Leftovers.
I do love The Leftovers.
Why do you love it so much, Michael?
It is very, very close to not being this podcast relevant, for one thing. I mean, there's one supernatural happening in it at the beginning.
Yeah, it's
very
almost
close. It's very close to being
remit.
Disqualified.
Yeah.
There are probably less supernatural, mythological, science fiction-y things going on in that than in, say, the TV show Bones.
Fair.
But spectacularly well written, acted, cast, 3 tight-ass seasons.
Yeah.
A very satisfying conclusion. Just
fair.
Mamma mia.
Chef's kiss.
Now, having said that, Ben,
yeah,
we have had some very good shows this year. We have.
It's been a good year.
It's a very easy thing to do, Ben, to fall into a recency bias.
Well, because it's fresh in our minds.
Exactly, Ben. So I don't know if they had come out at the start of the decade, would we still remember as fondly Watchmen, which was spectacular?
I don't think we would.
The Mandalorian, which is also very good.
Spectacular show.
There have been a lot of...
It's been a good year for sci-fi kind of TV series.
And big budget sci-fi TV series.
Yeah, because the money's being pumped in.
Streaming has made a big difference.
It has.
Some of the Marvel shows were also very good. I mean, it's hard to ignore the impact of Daredevil Season 1.
Daredevil Season 1 was a great show.
It was a very, very good show and very
show.
impactful. And unfortunately, the Netflix shows, in my opinion, lost their way.
Yeah, but I would argue that Jessica Jones Season 1 also great
very good
show.
Very strong.
Possibly one of the best villains that we've seen in a superhero TV show in a long time.
As was the Kingpin from Daredevil Season 1.
Bloody Vincent D'Onofrio, David Tennant.
You also, Ben, when you're talking about this, and I have to recognise this in my decision here, I gave Film of the Decade to The Avengers because of its pop culture, social, political influence.
Yes.
It's very hard to ignore Green Arrow. Or as it's also called, Arrow.
The whole CW end of the spectrum.
Look what that created. This melodramatic family drama about a part-time vigilante has blossomed into this
whole universe. And arguably a better universe than any film universe they've attempted to put out.
Certainly DC, for sure.
DC, sorry,
But 7, 8 shows have spawned out of it?
Flash, Supergirl,
Legends of Tomorrow,
Black Lightning, yeah.
Lucifer, arguably.
Arguably. Constantine had a little run there.
Constantine had a go.
Had a hot minute.
There's Stargirl coming out next year.
Stargirl's coming out next year, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to wrap up the CW verse with this
no,
crisis.
apparently not. We're getting Green Arrow and the Black Canaries, which is going to be his daughter as Green Arrow.
Because he's not... Okay.
And he's going to be the Spectre.
He's going to be the Spectre, which is
I think that's a great choice.
It makes a lot of sense, because he would be the embodiment of justice.
And he's in a green hood.
You have failed this universe. Yeah, that'd be quite. And he's in a green hood.
Yeah. But you can't. But I'm still giving it to Leftovers. The Leftovers is a much better show than Arrow, despite its pop culture. Now I know that disagrees. In that case, I probably should have given Film of the Decade to The Joker, but I reserve the right to have different opinions about different things.
Film of the Decade to The Joker?
Well, in terms of like authorship and performance and show,
I don't know about
what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm not, Ben.
I know you're not.
What's your TV show of the decade?
I don't actually know, Michael. I'm not as big a TV fan as you, and I'm suffering very much from recency bias.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to go backwards, Michael. As you know, I'm a creature that exists almost entirely in the now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really see future or past very well. I have the memory of a goldfish. So I've been struggling to put one of these together. I think all of your mentions have been very, very solid, Michael.
Thank you. I do a bit of research.
Yeah, well, you're much more. You take this much more seriously than I, Michael. I'm really only there to maintain the podcast Instagram, and occasionally agree or disagree with you for entertainment value.
Yes.
But I actually, in terms of having a show that has really stood out to me, Michael, I don't actually have anything. I
don't have a show of the decade.
Crippling
lack of opinion. All right. Well, let's move on then.
Yeah, I think we probably should.
Comic books.
They
also exist.
They're also a thing.
In many ways, the origin of some of the stuff we love.
So much of what we've been speaking about, Michael. I mean, there's some top contenders, regardless of how we look at it. I think one of the ones that instantly springs to mind is Saga.
I'd probably go with Saga, to be honest. If we might as well just spend our load straight off the bat.
I think in terms of impact again, Michael, in terms of, a real mover and shaker, something that we didn't ever expect. I suppose also a very clear signal to creators that create our own things can do exceptionally well, both critically and fanily. Yes, I think Saga would probably be one of the defining comic books of the year.
Do you think the 2010s will be remembered as the era of Saga?
The Saga of Saga?
The Saga of Saga. The problem with Saga, and the reason I won't say Saga, Ben, is that it hasn't wrapped up yet.
It hasn't. We don't know how it ends.
It could go horribly.
I think there are some other real key mentions there. Hawkeye. My Life is a Weapon.
By David Aja.
Yeah, in terms of a creative effort, in terms of something very different. I think a big, solid run there. Very interesting take on a superhero and how we could run him around. So I think in terms of creative effort, in terms of new ways of storytelling, in terms of new visual challenges, a very solid call there. I would also like to say that in terms of a comic book wrap-up of the decade, the Hellboy wrap-up from me was actually one of the best endings that I've ever read for a comic book. It's not now, to be fair, Hellboy is not a series from this decade. It's from this decade.
Exactly.
But in terms of a wrap-up, Michael, in terms of a tying it all together with a
neat
pretty
little
bow, I would argue that had one of the best wrap-ups. I'm looking around the tiny room here, Michael, to see what else.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, Ben. My comic book, I'm
sorry, go on.
We can't not talk about Invincible.
We can't.
We talk about it in every podcast. I mean, it certainly didn't start this decade, but it wrapped up this decade.
And a good wrap-up as well.
It was a very, very good wrap-up, I felt. Also, my kind of choice for new comic of the decade is the kind of Jeff Lemire verse. The Black Hammer universe.
Yeah,
that's all very good stuff. But my personal favourite, Ben, my personal favourite comic book of the 2010s was Transformers More Than Meets the Eye.
Of course it was.
And there's no surprise there.
Look at the bloody room.
Look at the room, first of all. But it took Transformers at a time when Transformers was, I feel, losing its way a little bit with the movies.
Absolutely.
And, it's a silly, dorky-ass concept.
But that's okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's okay.
And it took the Transformers and it made them characters and it sent them on a fun adventure.
You enjoyed that.
Didn't wrap up wonderfully. But I'm not including Transformers. What did it end up being called? Lost Light? I'm not including Lost Light.
It's not going there.
I'm just
including.
I'm saying Transformers More Than Meets the Eye. The original series. That's my comic book of the decade.
I forgot to mention. I do actually have one now that you mentioned it. Bloody East of West, Michael.
Oh yeah, you
by
enjoyed
Jonathan
that.
Hickman. I really enjoy that series, and I suppose it's again recency bias is a tough thing to tackle in a decade kind of look back. But I just saw it there on your shelf, Michael, and I remember this is probably one of the first comic books that I picked up independent of nothing. I liked the look of it, so I picked it up, and I ended up buying the entire run, Michael.
Oh, very good.
And it hasn't wrapped up just yet. We're just waiting for the last 2 issues, I think. But it's been consistently enjoyable. It's a Western with some sci-fi elements that I really enjoy. And I really fell for a lot of those characters. I really got invested in their arcs. So in terms of something that has consistently held my attention, Michael, and shocked me to my very core on occasion, it would be up there with Saga, I suppose, in unusual experiments. So I'm going to say East of West by the Jonathan Hickman and Nick Dragotta.
I don't think, Ben, there's any point getting into worst comic of the decade or most disappointing comics of the decade, because we probably didn't
Comics
read
are
it.
often disappointing.
Yeah, we probably didn't read it.
The new Spider-Man.
I haven't really enjoyed the new Spider-Man, to be honest, but that's a very recent thing, and other things have been more disappointing. I know
Bloody Tom King's Batman run on occasion.
people didn't really like that. A lot of people were disappointed by Doomsday Clock, but
Yeah, a lot of people were disappointed at the end of the bloody Dark Knight's Metal. A lot of people didn't like that. Thought it was a bit
but
too
look,
crazy.
we won't get
But
into
comics
that.
are so messy anyway.
Ben, let's see what some of the listeners said.
Yes. Let's pull that up there. I had it. Damn it. Great podcasting here from the two of us.
Yes.
So, bloody friend of the podcast,
Yeah.
Infinity Action Art, gave us his best short comic book series, which was Dr. Star and the Kingdom of Lost Tomorrows.
Which was funny,
Neither
'cause-
of us have read.
No, I have.
Have you?
Yeah. I think the funny thing about it might be over there. I think the funny thing about that was I think Infinity Action Figure Art, who has a great Instagram channel, by the way, that you should check out.
That you should all check.
He, I think, picked that up on our recommendation. And
Your recommendation?
Yeah, and I didn't love it.
But he did.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to family and fatherhood and things like that. And as you know, Ben, I'm not a father.
No great fathers
No
are
great
we.
father am I. So I think it speaks to some people on that level very deeply.
I think it possibly does.
Yeah.
I think it possibly does. But anyway, that was his bloody shout. He also said for the best comic series, Saga, and the best comic book writer of the decade.
Oh, look, I can't kind of remember, but I think the only way to solve this is to put best or most defining.
Most defining.
The only way to solve this is to put one Jeff Lemire, one Jonathan Hickman, and one Jason Aaron.
In the same bloody box.
Stick them in a cage and let them have a cage fight.
It's
and
like,
see who comes
well,
out.
let's just have it as 3 forms. It's like the Holy Ghost and the Holy Father and the Holy Spirit. They're all the 3 forms of the same bloody thing.
Personally, I find Jeff Lemire has been the most consistent.
I think he probably has.
He has the most original ideas.
I think Jeff Lemire is probably the most.
I think he has the best scope as well. You don't instantly pick it up and go, "Oh, this is the Hickman gig."
Yeah, it's
And
just
you
going to
can
be
tell
some
when-
crazy bloody cosmic stuff going on
Crazy
here.
cosmic stuff and characters from the past. Little known characters from the past. They're
Making a
back,
comeback.
and they're more powerful than the characters you know.
Oh,
Here they are.
oh.
Here's this guy. What does he do? Anything.
Yeah, I think we've also kind of moved past, as comic book readers, I suppose they're our new generation. We've moved past our Grant DMs and our wee Grant DMs and our Alan Moores and our what's the
Warren
other-
Ellis.
Who's the cat that hangs outside the Gareth Ennis?
Gareth Ennis, Warren Ellis.
One else. They're still
They're
big
still there.
names.
Yeah. But I
But
mean,
they are being surpassed
it's
a
the
little bit
era
by
of
lads who are a bit more inclusive, a bit more embracing of things. There's a lot of old comic book tropes that aren't being repeated anymore. We didn't have any weird, nasty rape scenes stuffed into our comics this year.
didn't we?
In the last decade, not from the new boys, not from the Lemire squad.
Oh, that's
Less
good.
fridging happening in our comic books.
That's good, isn't
which
it?
Which is we're growing as a community, Michael, and I'm quite happy to see that happen.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, Michael. What's the next category?
No.
Oh, sorry.
We're just going to go through the listeners. See what else other
few
listeners
more
said.
listeners. Things. Dr. Cadwell.
Dr. Stephen J.
That's
Cadwell.
Dr. Cadwell to
Dr.
me.
Cadwell to you.
Has been very busy and given us quite a list, Michael. So, in terms of TV series, because we've already covered it, of the decade, Stranger Things.
Interesting
Going to
choice.
strongly disagree with Dr. Cadwell on that one, but that's okay because that's not what we're doing here, Michael.
Yeah.
We're not here to make a definitive list, Michael.
we're just having
it's
a discussion.
personal bloody thing. Action movie of the decade. Mad Max Fury Road.
It's very hard to disagree with that.
With 2 parentheses,
Yeah.
obvs.
Well, I don't know if it's obvious, because didn't Judge Dredd come out this decade?
Very good movie.
And didn't The Raid come out this decade as well?
Very good movie also. Sci-fi movie of the decade, controversially, Guardians of the Galaxy.
don't disagree.
Don't disagree.
Yeah, loved
Neither of
Guardians
us
the Galaxy.
No two disagreeers are we.
No two disagreeers. And I'm actually sorry, I kind of forgot to mention it when we were talking about favourite films.
Yes, we probably should have slipped that in there. Again,
I really
a breath
love
of
that
fresh
film.
air.
Yeah.
A breath of fresh air.
Really, really enjoy that film.
We had genre performer of the decade,
Yeah.
which I found to be an interesting category.
Right.
Scarlett Johansson.
She's done a lot of things.
Tom Hardy and Benedict Cumberbatch were close seconds.
I would also throw in Tom Hardy.
Yes. Well, good to see that you agree
I've
with
just
some of the
realised there that
listeners.
that's who I was thinking of.
It's
It's not who I was thinking of. Who was I thinking of? Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, another great shout there.
Again, that might be a recency thing.
Good egg of 2019 is Keanu Reeves.
He's a very good egg. He's breathtaking.
And good egg of the decade. Now, this is interesting.
Go on.
Mark Ruffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Taika Waititi.
Mark Ruffalo does a lot of
charitable
stuff.
things.
Charitable,
Yes,
political stuff.
He's a very aware man.
He
Very
does seem to be
woke.
very pleasant.
He does seem to be a very pleasant man. Taika Waititi is also there.
Taika Waititi was probably my favourite director of the decade
I think probably the most interesting decade.
because he has influenced in no small way this podcast.
Yes.
First of all,
we've been very influenced by Taika.
yeah. First of all, with I'm Made of Rooks.
I'm Made of
Thor
Rooks.
Ragnarok was one of my favourite films as well. Again, a better film than Avengers, undoubtedly,
Undoubtedly.
but not as impactful.
Such an interesting arc for the God of Thunder.
And also, Ben, he gave us the phrase "good egg."
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to see how Jason Aaron was influenced by Thor Ragnarok because the characterization of Thor began to change as a result of Thor Ragnarok. So, I mean, if you're looking at knock-on effects, Michael,
Of the
at
decade.
drops in the ocean that cause ripples that lead to tidal waves, that would be a pretty solid call. Taika
And he
Waititi,
gave, I mean, the irony of him being voted good egg of the decade when he in fact gave us the phrase,
good egg. It's all him.
Yeah.
It's all him. It's all Taika.
Thanks, Taika.
Thanks, Taika.
And he was in The Mandalorian.
Let's see what else we got here. My mind criteria. Oh, will I read out a little comment? Because he gave us a little justification.
All right,
Michael.
go on, read out
So,
a little comment.
I don't have Dr. Cadwell's voice down, so I'm going to use my regular voice.
Your normal voice.
My main criteria were how big was their impact. So GOG, which is Guardians of the Galaxy,
GOTG.
might not be the best, but it opened the door for comedy and silliness in superhero films. Comedy.
That's
which
your
is-
normal voice.
Which is similar to comedy,
Yeah.
but a little bit different. Likewise, Scarlett Johansson might not be my favourite, but she got a lot of genre stuff greenlit and was in everything. Bad egg of the decade has to go to Trump, doesn't it? Politics aside, his rise to power has either caused or coincided with a whole heap of dull, nasty trolling and bad egging that has severely impacted pop culture. He's the troll poster boy. I don't know about that.
Oh.
I think that culture existed before Trump, and I think because that culture existed, it led to the rise of someone like Trump. But anyway, look, we're not doing politics in the podcast. That's not what we do here. Irishman of the decade was Becky Lynch
Oh, Becky Lynch from the wrestling.
from the wrestling.
Yeah.
So he has an Irishman of the decade, which is probably a category that we should have, Michael.
We should bloody do it. Let's do it.
I'm going to say
Who's-
it's bloody Michael Leonard.
Oh, thanks. I'll say it's also me. You thought I was going to say you, but I
very
didn't. I
good.
said me.
Very good.
Who was the most impactful Irish person in popular culture this decade?
It's a great question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty
It
solid
might be
question.
Becky Lynch.
I would actually say Martin McDonagh.
Who's Martin McDonagh?
Martin McDonagh is the screenwriter who's given us things like Free Fire and bloody Seven Psychopaths, and he's had a lot of influence in terms of getting his scripts out there and getting them written up.
We're also seeing a lot more Irish people in the comic industry.
In the comic book industry,
Shalvey.
Declan Shalvey, who we're two great Declan Shalvey fans are we. We have our own. We're seeing our own little comic industry rise up. We have Barry Keegan,
Yeah.
who we're a big fan of here at the
Big fan
podcast.
of, yeah.
But it's interesting to see that kind of little resurgence of Irish makers and doers kind of come forward. So it's just been a great decade for the Irish in pop culture all round.
Yeah. Dolphin Gleeson.
It's bloody
He's in everything.
General Hooks.
He was General Hooks. He was in that I'm in Love with a Robot who's a lady.
Ex Machina.
That was it.
Ex Machina. Him and Oscar Isaac. Look, the Irish are doing okay. We're chugging along.
If Dolphin Gleeson, is he Irish?
Who?
Dolphin Gleeson.
Yes, he's very Irish.
Good.
He's one of the Gleasons.
Oh, is he?
He's one of the Gleasons. He's Brendan Gleason's son.
Oh, Brendan Gleeson.
He's
very
bloody Merlin in the Hellboy film. What a turn there. Bloody Moore Street Merlin. you bloody idiot, you're supposed to take the sword out of the stone.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. It was
really don't
the
remember
other Gleason brother.
We probably should have thought about Irishman of the Decade a bit more carefully.
That would have been a good. Aisling B's doing very well in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's very recent, isn't it?
Very recent, so it's a recency bias. But you can't argue the fact that she's been in a bloody huge Netflix series with Mr. Paul Rudd.
I think that's a good shout on Becky Lynch, though, to be fair, because Becky Lynch she's Irish.
She is.
And she's playing Irish, but she's not going too much into the stereotype.
She's not bloody Seamus.
Yeah, she's not Seamus or that little leprechaun guy who was an insult to us all culturally. Any more listener stuff there, Ben, before
there's
we wrap
one
up?
more there from fan of the podcast, Polka Sundays.
Polka Dot Sundays, Ben.
Well, it's just... I've never
You never got that before?
Never
Very
got
good.
that before. Polka Dot Sundays. It's... well, we're going to do it
I don't think she's into polka. It's not like polka, polka, polka.
As in the dance form. Fair enough. Mick and Ben, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah,
so she did a little throwback joke there. Best TV series of the decade, Stranger Things. So we have a little agreement there with Dr. Cadwell. Best duo of the decade, Mabel and Dipper.
Very good from
Mick and Ben are in the mix too, don't worry.
Very good. Oh, our egos.
Best superhero film of the decade, Thor Ragnarok. I'm made of rocks.
Yeah, he is made of rocks.
Best TV show for building a sense of community, Game of Thrones. Which is Game of Thrones, I think, with a typo.
No, it's Game of Thrones. I think that's an intentional joke.
Well, look, let's do a quick little few wrap-ups there, because that leads us into our bloody disappointments of the decade, Michael, because that was a category that we had written down.
Well, people were very upset about the ending of Game of Thrones, weren't they? They were very upset.
We could also argue that what we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, Star Wars, the new trilogy, has been a very big disappointment for many people.
A disappointment for me is that bloody Supernatural is still going.
Supernatural is still going. That's 2 decades.
Please stop
2 decades.
Please just stop.
Very disappointing to see that still gets funding, and some of our favourite shows do not.
My personal biggest disappointment, Ben, was the relative failure of Marvel TV.
It kind of flopped for you, but
the real promise of it's all connected.
Yeah,
it's all linked,
and it wasn't.
Although Jarvis did show up in Avengers Endgame, that was nice. But I mean, just if one person had come through those portals from TV,
what joy!
Imagine if the Defenders had come through one of the portals.
What joy!
That would have saved the day for me for Marvel TV. But yeah, my disappointment of the decade, despite the fact that I enjoyed many of the shows, was Marvel TV.
I'm sorry. You okay?
Right. I'm fine.
It's tough.
I enjoyed Game of Thrones. I really did enjoy Game of Thrones. But I can't believe we forgot Spartacus when we were talking about a TV show of the decade. Although that might have started in the previous decade.
It's also definitely not a TV show of the decade.
Oh, it was brilliant.
But anyway, bad egg of the year, quickly now.
Of the decade?
Of the decade, yeah.
Well, it has to be Harvey Weinstein, doesn't it?
I think he's still up there.
He's still like the whole...
Also in terms of impact and what he caused in terms of the Me Too movement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like very bad egg.
Yeah.
Like he caused a whole movement.
Look what he did.
Also possibly Jeffrey Epstein. Or Prince Andrew.
That's recency bias.
I know, it is recency bias, but they seem like a right pair of pricks.
Very bad.
Yeah, I think in terms of it in terms of podcast scope, Michael, it would have to be Harvey Weinstein.
Wouldn't it?
Because we circle the entertainment industry all the time.
Otherwise, we're just going into politics. And
a lot of men in power in Hollywood. Bad eggs of the decades.
Let's just say that.
There was a lot of lads with power that probably shouldn't have had power.
Creeps in power in
Creeps in
entertainment.
power in general. Thankfully, here at the Michael and Benjamin, we have absolutely no power
no power whatsoever. Only a small amount of power over each other.
And even then, I don't even bother much. It's just Mick with power over me. Because I'm a jaded, washed up has-been, and I just kind of go with it.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Don't you say that about yourself. That's not nice. It's Christmas.
Very kind. Any other categories there before we do a full-on wrap-up? Ladies and gentlemen, what did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Mm-hmm. What was your breakout kind of surprise of the decade? What kind of caught you off guard?
Baby Yoda.
Bloody late to the game, but oh my god, captured the hearts and minds of every last one of us.
Pikachu
Now can go feck off. Baby Yoda's way cuter, also possibly more powerful, but that remains to be seen.
Look, they'll have a showdown eventually.
Anyway, look, Michael, that's it for us from the decade.
Yeah.
This is the last Michael and Benjamin's podcast of the decade.
Of the entire decade.
We've been going for 3 years now, Michael.
I know. Who would have thought?
And so on that note, that's it for the podcast. We're not coming back in the next decade. We're done. We're out of here. No, just kidding. You'll see us in the new year where we'll have brand new ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your chance to fill up our new year coffer. We need ideas. We need thoughts. What would you like to hear discussed on the podcast? A Dr. Cadwell style question about what's going to fill the bloody pop culture void.
What's the future of popular culture?
What do you think the future of popular culture is? Chime in and let us know. As always, ladies and gentlemen, you can get in touch with us in many, many places.
Ben, tell people we're taking a 2-week break. I think that's important.
We are taking a 2-week breather, ladies and gentlemen, because we're fucking...
It's Christmas.
We're knackered.
We both have a cough.
No juice left in the tank. No juice left in the tank.
If anyone's listening, I've got loads of juice left in the tank, just so it's clear.
I've got nothing.
Ben's got nothing.
I am a husk.
Yeah. If Entertainment Weekly are listeling,
just we can hire us.
I'm cruising by here on like 10% power.
And it's still better than your 2 reviewers that did The Witcher. You can get in touch with us in lots of different places. We are at seomrabeag.com, SEOMRABEAG.com.
I mean tiny room in Irish.
It does mean tiny room in Irish. You can find us on Instagram at seomrabeag.com.
I mean, it doesn't actually mean tiny room.
No, it means small room.
Yeah.
But we couldn't figure out what tiny was. Seomreen Beag is probably what we could.
Would be great.
But anyway. You can also find us on Instagram at seomrabeag, SEOMRABEAG. That's it, because it's Instagram.
It kind of means tiny room.
It kind of means tiny room in Irish. We're on YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, do give us a comment down below or a like and subscribe. Every little helps. If you're listening to us on Spotify, give us a follow.
Our YouTube listenership, Ben, dwindles every week as people move over to Spotify and SoundCloud.
They kind of do. I think that's how it works.
I mean, it's just more convenient.
It's just way more convenient.
You can keep listening.
Keep it
you
your
can
pocket.
keep listening when you play. Yeah,
it's pretty silly. Anyway, this is where podcasts should be. We're also on Apple Podcasts, and if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. You bastard. That can be your Christmas gift to us too.
Or a Christmas gift would also be fine.
If you're Ryan Johnson, you'd have a rough year. Okay, but chin up. You gave us one of the best films of the year.
Knives Out.
Bloody great film. And I think you deserved a little bit more than what you got for The Last Jedi, Ryan. And I just want you to keep your chin up. Okay? To Jon Favreau and the gang over The Mandalorian, bloody well done, lads. Bloody well done. And to Baby Yoda, love you. Love you lots. That's it from us. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Happy New Year. See you next year, 2020.